Hey there guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we are back again with another task which is offered by the Sparks Foundation. And in this task we'll be getting more in-depth knowledge about exploratory data analysis. Now this is a very important and a very interesting topic. So what is exploratory data analysis? Let's get into that first. Assume that you've just received a data set. Now that particular data set has many columns and many rows. Now, this data set is like a treasure map. It has all the hidden clues, every single thing. And finally, your ultimate aim as a data scientist or as a data analyst is to follow that treasure map and get to your treasure. Now, when we talk about machine learning or in data science, your treasure is the perfect model or the ideal model for a particular situation. Now that is where EDA comes into play, because EDA is basically you get to uncover all the hidden patterns in your data. You get to understand your data. Now understanding your data is a very important, crucial step, because if you don't understand your data, no matter what you do, it's pointless. So that's why we go for exploratory data analysis. So let's see how I went through about this. Now there are different ways that you can go through. The one can be where you understand the columns separately, that is univariate analysis. Then you go for bivariate analysis. But in this case, I've actually mixed it up a bit. Like in my univariate and bivariate, and I've done it together. So we'll see how I went through that. So initially, I'll be importing all the necessary libraries like NumPy, Pandas for data manipulation, and Matplotlib and Seaborn for visualization. And I'll be loading my required data, which is the sample Superstore. Now this is a retail industry, so we'll be doing that. Then what I've done is I've viewed the first 5 rows of my data set, and as you can see here, since I've gone through this data set, I know that country does not play a major role because it's all about US. So I think I can remove that one. That does not get that's not much importance for me. But one thing that I've noticed here is that you can see for the fourth row, compared to the top 5 rows, the fourth row has the highest sales and the highest quantity, and it also has the highest discount. But in spite of all these higher values, the profit is actually a loss. I mean, negative 383. So these are the problems that you can find in your data set when you go for EDA. Now this is just the first 5 rows that you can see. Now let's see what's the dimensionality of our data set. So we have a total of 9,994 rows and 13 columns. Now, one good thing about using Python is that your command is basically like what it means. It's not nothing complicated. So your .info is basically giving you an information about your data set. So here in this information, we'll see how many non-null values are there and what is the data type. So in all this, you can see the number of non-null values are basically 9,994, which means there are no null values, which is a good thing. You can move forward with that. And most of the data types are object ones, which is basically strings. Now that can be a bit confusing, but let's see how we can go about with that. We use to get a description about the numerical value. That means to get the mean, median, first quartile, third quartile, maximum and minimum values, you can use the describe function. Okay, now we go into an important step, which is checking the missing values. Now this should be performed in every EDA. Now in our data set, since using the .info, we understood that there are no missing values. But then again, rather than looking at something that's written, our picture makes much more sense. So let's visualize that using the missing NO library. So here we can see that there are no null values. Now you can also try using sns.heatmap of df.isNull. Now that's another method that you can use. Now if you still are not satisfied, or maybe this image might be crammed up so that you can't understand whether if there are any missing values, you can also go and check using the df.isNull.any. Now this will give a boolean answer. Boolean in the sense it will give true or false answer. Next we'll check for the data types, and we see that most of the data types are object. Most of the columns are object data type. There are two integer type and three float types. Now float is basically decimal points and integer is, well, integers. Now we'll be exploring each of these features one by one. And I have a set of objectives that I want to satisfy with my EDA. So these are the objectives. Which ship mode showcases the highest profit and sales? In each segment, which ship mode is preferred? The profit and sales in each segment, and so and so. We have 13 objectives. So looking at our first feature, I'll use a count plot. Now a count plot is very good because it gives a visualization about how how each category in your column is numbered, or how much is the total count. So if you can look here, standard class has more number compared to second class, first class, and on the same day. Now what I've done after that is I've checked the sales and profit that's made by each ship mode. Now if you're looking at it, the code basically means that first I'm grouping my data frame by the ship mode. From that I'm just taking the profit and sales column, then I'm taking the sum of that, and then I'm just plotting it. So as you can see here, the standard class has a huge number of sales, but if you're looking at the profit, it's not that great. It's compared to the sales, the profit is pretty low. So that is some issue with this particular data set. I mean, if I had this much sales, I would prefer my profit also to be somewhat stronger as well, at least up to par with my sales. But here it's not. So that's an issue. Now we'll go for the second feature. Now this is the segment. So we check for the unique value. So there are consumer segment, there's a corporate segment, and there is home office segment. Now these three segments are the people are the group that purchases. Now we'll see among these three, which is the group that purchases a lot. And looking at again at a count plot, we can see the consumers are more in number, the corporate is second in command, and home office is last. Now, what I want to do is I want to understand ship modes and segments. So what this means is in each segment, what is the preferred ship mode that they use. Now we know from our previous count plot of the ship mode, we understood that standard class was the more in number. So maybe here also it will be the same. So let's look at that. Now here I've used a pivot table. Now pivot table is very good for these type of questions when you want to compare between two columns. I prefer going with pivot tables. Here I've used a segment as my main index and ship mode as my second index, and I've just taken the count of the quantity column. So if you look at that, for consumers, standard class has the highest quantity. For corporate also we can see the standard class has the highest quantity, and for home office, standard has the highest quality. So that's something that is actually good that we can keep in mind, that standard class is preferred by all the three segments. I've taken the query. Now if this is all together, pivot table gives you the details of all the ones. Now you can also use the query command for that particular pivot table to get it separately. Just mention here segment, which segment you want. So if I want the consumer, I can have consumer just in a list. That's all, as a list. That's all. Fine. Now we'll see how the profit and sales are made. And if you look at this, just like our previous profit and sales, we could see here that the sales that is done by the consumer is pretty high, but the profit is not that great. I mean, profit of consumer and corporate is somewhat close to each other, not to that extent, but yeah, it's somewhat close to each other. So that is something that we can see where we have to do. Those type of things we'll be doing in feature engineering, guys. We are not going to go about in EDA. In EDA, we're just visualizing and just understanding the problem. We just write down those problems by ourselves. Like I said, I will not be considering the country column as it's only US. Next, we'll go for city. And here also I've used a pivot table, and I want to see the top 3 profit making cities for each segment. Now remember, we had our segment as consumers, corporate, and home office. So we'll see for consumers, we have New York, which has the highest profit, Los Angeles, second in command, and then we have Seattle. That's for consumers. For corporate also we have New York, and also I'm just keeping the first one. I mean, as you can see, the third, all the three are displayed here. And also for home office also we have New York. So New York is actually performing or bringing to our company the maximum profit. So that's some place that we can concentrate on. We can be like, okay, so since New York is there, I don't think I need to focus much on New York as such. They're providing a lot. Now the reason can be New York is, well, New York is New York. So that's one thing. Now let's see the top three loss making cities. Now if I was the manager of the company, I would not really want the profit. I want to know which are the cities that brings me loss so that I can focus on that. Now, if I look at in the consumer sector, I can see Houston, San Antonio, and Lancaster. These three are bringing the loss. I mean, top three loss-making companies. I mean, cities. So here I need to focus on these three, and there might be many more. If I take 10, so it will be like, top 10. So I can focus on that also. That's for consumers. Now for um, corporate, I have Philadelphia, Chicago, and Burlington. And also for home office, I have Louisville, Philadelphia, and Jacksonville. So these nine cities, or for each segment we have three each, but there might be some common. Yeah, so those cities are some place that I can focus on or I can make better. I can understand why other corporate is not preferring in Philadelphia, and why Houston is not being, so why the consumers are not going to Houston, and why they are preferring New York in that sense. So those things are questions that you can ask to your marketing agents as well. I mean, you can ask them, so you can get a more idea about that. Now next, what we'll do is we'll see which ship mode does New York City use the most. Now we know that New York is bringing us to the maximum profit. So now is there some relation between the ship mode and the city? So if we look at that, for consumers, standard class is preferred by all the three, in all the three segments for New York. So I think standard class stands out there as well. Now we'll see the profit made by the top five cities. So New York is having a huge sales, and its profit is also it's great, but it's not that great. Detroit is actually having lowest sales among the top five, but its profit is also not that up to par. So yeah, I think we can. I think that's some problem that we have with our data set, and we don't have to discuss about that in any further. Now we go for category. So now one thing that you've noticed is for all my object data types columns, I've used count plot. Now you can use whatever plot you want. I've just used count plot because that gives me a better idea about how my uh, categories are distributed in that. What I follow is for numerical values, I usually go for a dist plot, and for categorical values, I go for a count plot also. So yeah, let's see. In category, we have three categories. We have office supplies, furniture, and technologies. Okay, now using the count plot, we can see that office supplies are more in number, followed by furniture, and then technology. Now let's see the sales and profit made by each category. So I've done the group by function again. And if you can see here, the maximum sales is done by technology and the profit is bought by technology. And the minimum sales is done by office supplies, but it's second in line compared to the first, I mean, compared to furniture. Now, furniture has a good amount of sales. Actually, furniture has more sales than office supplies, but the profit is really, really, really low. So that's some place that we can look at furniture. But if you look at it, even though office supplies are more in number and technology is less in number count wise, the sales of technologies is way above the charts. So it's above, I would say, 8 lakh. So yeah, that's pretty high. But yeah, profit wise is not getting. Still, it's more than the office supply. So that's an amazing thing that we can see. I mean, even though they're less in number, maybe their sales are pretty high. But yeah, furniture is somewhere that we need to look at, because having this much sales, having coming in second in terms of sales, it's coming in last in terms of profit. So that's something that we need to look at. Fine. Now let's see which city has the highest and lowest quantity. Now, when I'm doing these things, see, as you can see here, I'm basically comparing one particular column with other different columns. Now, if I was comparing, now in the first case was category. So this is what I have told about univariate analysis, where I'm just analyzing one particular column. Now here I'll be analyzing category with sales and profit. Now that's a multivariate analysis. Now if it was a bivariate analysis, then you will go for category with sales. And so there are just two, you're comparing two columns. So that's a bivariate analysis. So from now on, I'm just going to do multivariate analysis. So here I've done with city, which provides us the lowest quantity. So I can see for office supplies and for cities, New York City, I can see there are 2065 quantities that are being sold. That's the highest for office supplies, and the lowest is for boys. That's one. So this right here is bivariate analysis, because I'm just comparing two columns as such. And then if you're looking at it for furniture, we have New York as the highest, and Bellevue, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that, but still, as one. Technology, I have New York City as number one and Chico as one. That's the lowest. Now, in all these columns, we can see the lowest is the quantity being bought is one. Now, that is a problem that we can address. That is a problem that we can ask. Why is furniture being bought in Bellevue, or why is technology being bought in Chico only one? Why aren't our consumers buying more? So these questions can be asked, and they can help improve your business. Now we'll look at the five cities which give us the lowest profit for each category. So if you look at here, in office supplies, we have Houston, Chicago, San Antonio, Philadelphia, and Dallas, which gives us the lowest profit. In technology, Lancaster, Burlington, Philadelphia, Louisville, and Jacksonville. And for furnitures, we have Philadelphia, Chicago, Houston, Aurora, and Dallas. So yeah, you can focus on these cities as well. Now we'll look at the subcategory. Now subcategory are basically the items or the products that is being sold. Now here in the count plot, we can see binders are being sold. I mean, binders are having more number of count. I can never say that it's being sold. Paper is coming in second, and yeah, it's followed by, I would say, furnishings, storage, and so on. So we'll see five items which give maximum profit for each category. For office supplies, we have paper, then we have binders. Now, looking at here, we have binders as first, even though they have more in number, but paper is actually better than binders for office supplies. I mean, obviously, you need more of paper there. Technologies, we have copiers as more, and phones, but there are only four of them. There are no five, so I guess copiers, phones, and accessories. For furnitures, we have chairs, furnishings, bookcases, and tables. That's a new turn of events. I mean, you're having chairs more in number. Chairs are bringing in much more profit, and also it has a higher quantity and sales. But tables are bringing in less of profit. It's third in line for the quantity, and its sales are actually nice here. Yeah, now let's see the five items which give least profit. So that's for office supplies, we have supplies, fasteners, labels, art, envelopes, and so on. For technology, we have machines, accessories, phones, copiers, and for furnitures, we have tables, bookcases. So yeah, we know that tables are giving us a less profit. Now, if we look at the sales and profit of each of this subcategory, we can see that phones are having the highest sales, but it's having the second in line profit, whereas copiers are having, compared to phones, chairs, well, one, two, three, four, five, and six. It's sixth in line for the sales, but its profit is higher compared to the other ones. So that's something that we can look at. I mean, copiers are basically for technology, if I'm not wrong, we had seen here. So maybe they are buying more in number. So that's why the profit is high. Now here I'm comparing all the three, sales, discount, and profit. I'm not doing any univariate or bivariate. Now in this plot, I've used a line plot. Now, if you can see here, there is a small, you can understand by looking at the graph, there's a pattern here. Now, if you can see here at zero discount, let's say 0% discount, you have your profit is pretty high. I mean, close to, let's consider that to be a profit, I mean, a higher profit, and your sales are somewhere that's actually low compared to the rest of the plot. But as you reach your 50, if you give a 50% discount, your sales have increased. But at 50% discount, your profit has reduced. Now, one thing is that your profit can reduce because, yes, the price has reduced at that point. But if you're looking at a 60% discount, there your sales has reduced, but your profit has increased. Now, 60% discount is comparatively more, I believe. I'm not entirely sure. Yes. So if you're looking at that, after that 50% discount, the sales has not increased, and to that extent, and after the 50% discount, profit has also not decreased to that extent. So these are some problems. So there are places where no profit, I mean no uh, a discount and profit can be high, and there are situations where you give a 50% discount and profit is less. So these peaks or these downhills are the ones that we need to focus on, because they are they are some issues that we can address to our clients so that they give us a better, I mean they make better profits and better sales as well. Now that's all what I've done till now. So what I'm gonna do is, this is task 3. I'll be doing task 4, which is also an exploratory data analysis, but there I will be actually introducing hacks rather than going through this whole tedious process of going through each column one by one by one. We'll write maybe lines of codes in just 5 or 6 lines of codes that fetches us all the information that is required for a proper EDA. So for understanding the data, more than proper EDA, for understanding the data, just 5 lines of code or maybe 3 lines of code, we'll get the answer. So that's what I'll be doing in the next video, and stay tuned guys. Thank you.